Hey everybody, it is the weekend after D23 Expo. Perhaps you see that behind me. And I've just recovered. But I wanted to have a quick conversation about something that came out of the what I call the DPEP presentation Sundays. That's parks, experiences, and products. And so I'm really happy to kind of Fanboy Planet team up here with Cinema Blend's Dirk Libbey. Hi, Dirk.
Hello. Hello, sir.
Hey,
How are you?
good. I depended on you during D23 because I had a reservation to go see the Tron 40th anniversary panel. I got in there instead of the parks and experiences panel. So I was, oh, this is what happened. Good. I'm following Dirk on Twitter, to see what
Right.
else.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there either, but because they live streamed it, I was able to follow it from here. And yeah, so I just tweeted everything as it was happening. And because you mentioned that you were going to follow me to find all the answers, so I knew at least one person who was going to read it.
Yes, and that was me, and all the way up to when Tron started. So why I contacted you this morning was one, certainly because you had great insight, but there is a phrase that I see is popping up around when Disney talks about attractions, and I should say lands, because let me not oversell at all that the redoing of what was Fisherman's Wharf basically in California Adventure, which was if you live in California, that was one of the dumbest aspects of California Adventure. Like you and I were both in
Right.
San Francisco all the time.
We're here. We know we can go. We can go to the actual thing.
Yes, and they're re-theming it as San Francisco, which I gotta think is going to be a very light re-theming, and the big thing is Baymax will have an excuse to walk around in there. So, but they're calling it stories. The press release I got after the fact, not from Cinema Blend, but from their publicist, said there are 3 stories coming to California Adventure, or I think in the parks, because they announced Frozen in Tokyo, or was it Hong Kong? I don't quite remember which. I pay more attention to California being down here. This phrase popped up. I first noticed it in 2019 at D23 when Bob Chapek was still the head of the parks. And he came out and made this big deal about stories. And the criticism was then that basically that was the beginning of everything at Epcot being rethemed to a movie. And so I kind of wanted your take on this. Is it just me getting irked that corporate speak? I don't know.
I mean, I mean, it's not just you. Like, I think we can start there. It's definitely not just you. There is, um, y- Disney always needs to brand whatever they're doing in whatever way they're going to do it, and so and right now, I think what we're seeing is they're trying to find a way to sort of bring everything together, the movies, the streaming stuff, the theme parks, and put it together in a way that the the user experience is that it is all one thing. And so they need a word, so that's where, like you said, they're using stories in this case because they want, the theme park is going to tell a story in the same way that the movie tells a story. And I think there's a reason that the Tiana's Bayou adventure is being set up as a sequel to The Princess and the Frog rather
Sure.
than just being a dark ride of The Princess and the Frog. And part of that is they want you, if you're a fan of Princess and the Frog, they want you to come to the theme parks so that you can experience the sequel because that's the next story. Um, and so I think that's, yeah, I mean, and we're seeing a lot of corporate speak becoming sort of normal, you know,
Well, you
Disney
just called it.
using Disney using their corporate speak much more freely and openly with the public. The theme park thing that gets me is activations. You know,
Yes, but I see those every. It's not just in theme parks. It's obviously things in Hollywood. Hey, there's a pop up. It's an activation.
yeah.
But you even accidentally just said that instead of referring to us as audience or guests, as they used to like to say. You called this the user experience.
Well,
And by the way, I'd rather call it the used experience because after I've paid. I don't know how much. I don't remember. What's money
right.
anyway? To get into D23 and to go to the Oogie Boogie Bash and buy all the souvenirs that I bought, well, I got used.
Right. Well, and I almost said guest, but I realized that when you're also talking about, combining that with watching movies or watching streaming content, guest doesn't really fit. And so, we will probably get a new term for that. It probably won't be user because that doesn't sound very, very welcoming. They'll find a new word for that, I'm sure, but they will.
Unless we're talking about Tron.
Right.
If we are the users in control, that's fantastic. But
well, that's what they're going to want you to think.
It's no accident that the new Tron game, I'm sorry, the Tron story, the next chapter in the Tron story, right. Users will be even more mythical than they were in the two films and the right. television series. So yes, we're just legends, but not Disney legends.
But not Disney legends.
Yet. So okay. What excited you? Okay, I mean, I accept this. It just bothered me that the feeling of I miss the occasional original ideas that come out of a park. Like I've accepted what you're saying about storytelling. There's a Marvel theme park universe and there's an endless 15-minute loop is how I figured that out when they first, created Guardians of the Galaxy or got rid of that. But I accept all that, but I miss the things that aren't necessarily tied into, I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean let us know. I mean, there was this very weird experience, right? That Pirates of the Caribbean was a ride in 1969, successful series of films. So when you get to Shanghai and build Shanghai Disneyland, they can't build the Pirates of the Caribbean ride because that means nothing to the Chinese audience.
Right.
Jack Sparrow means everything. So they have a completely different Pirates ride.
Well, and even the Pirates ride that we have at Disneyland or Magic Kingdom now has Jack Sparrow in it, and so there's going to be there's theoretically a generation who is going to grow up going on that ride, not necessarily realizing unless somebody points it out that wasn't always the case, and that that element in the ride was based on a movie and not the other way around. But yeah, I mean that's where we're at, and I mean,
just don't touch my haunted mansion. That's what I'm terrified of the new movie suddenly altering everything in that game in that attraction.
I mean, the one saving grace, and I don't mean this to as awfully as it's going to sound, is while I certainly hope that movie is good, and that movie might be good, and that movie might be successful. I mean, it's gonna have to be Pirates of the Caribbean level successful, I think, to really even consider any kind of change like that. And my knee-jerk reaction, not having seen any of it, is that I don't think that's going to happen. Because I do think it would take that sort of a level of success for anyone to even consider that.
Good. That's a relief to me. And of those news stories announcement, as you were covering all this and certainly all the things globally, I mean, I was excited to find out what was going on at Tokyo Disney Seas. Not that I'll get over there. I think you had tweeted out like you've never been on the world tour. So maybe our families can team and do a world tour because I've Absolutely. Never been. I haven't even been to Florida, and not anytime soon, but need to go to Florida. But of the things, I'll focus on California. Of what was announced, I mean, they got a twofer, right? They got to say the Avengers Ride, even though they had technically announced it in 2019, but they drastically changed the plot.
Yeah, I mean, I think and they had basically stopped talking about it, post pandemic. So there was a lot of question. I mean, there was no real indication that that was a project moving forward. I think we all, we all hoped that it was, and I sort of figured that it probably was, because I think that Avengers Campus definitely needs that big attraction that it currently doesn't have. And so certainly the story, going back to stories, the story of that ride has apparently changed. And because of the time that has changed, that's not too surprising. By the time that ride is going to be done, which is going to be a couple of years minimum, the Marvel universe is going to be in a different place, and whatever they had planned previously probably was going to feel old by that point. So they wanted to shift it to something that's a little bit more current with what they're doing in the movies. And I think the multiverse concept, it potentially works in a lot of different ways. I mean, in the land itself, Avengers Campus doesn't have that stuck in time element that something like Galaxy's Edge has. And they've been more than willing to just throw the characters in there whenever the new show or the new movie comes out. And depending on how this ride works, you can theoretically do that there too.
You can go into any time period, as we saw Friday at the games panel. The game that most people buzzed about doesn't even have a name yet, but it's World War II with Captain America and T'Challa's grandfather. And if you look, and people watching this, you can look on Fanboy Planet, I'm sure it's everywhere. They had sent out the concept art in 2019, let every news site run it for that. And you're right, they shut up after the pandemic changed a lot of things, but the big thing is it was clear that you were supposed to go to Wakanda and you were supposed to team up with T'Challa to fight. It looked to me like Aeneas from the Fantastic Four. So they were trying, they had grand plans that were undone as well by, say, the time, but also the passing of Chadwick Boseman, because everything they had planned for Wakanda suddenly had to be rewritten.
Right. Yeah. And, obviously, they're, technically speaking, the theme park of the Marvel Universe is not the same as the movie universe, but obviously they have used the actors every chance that they can. And I think, if you had Black Panther in a significant role in an attraction, and you didn't, obviously you're not, and you can't do it with Chadwick Boseman, a lot of people just would not be into it. It would not, even if they wanted to be into it, even if they, because Black Panther, I think, is still going to be, an iconic character, and whatever they're going to do in the next movie, I'm sure they're going to do whatever they can to make that work. But I think if you put a ride that had a lot of Wakanda and Black Panther in it, and you tried to build that today, and you were like, and we've cast this other person as Black Panther, people are just going to be like, nah, sorry.
Yeah, it's different. How do you feel about the San Francisco overlay? Or hypothesize for me. There is a Baymax ride in Tokyo, which is a good kiddie ride. I think, like my issue with California Adventure is that it always feels like one or two rides short of a full day park, and it should be a full day park.
Yeah.
So is it just a matter of space why we didn't get it?
I guess so. Pacific Wharf area, it's a food court. It's a food court and a bakery tour right now. That's essentially all Pacific Wharf is.
Let's be honest, that's all it's going to be. But out of a gate, Baymax will walk out occasionally and offer lollipops.
Right. They will. Yeah. They will have. The Baymax will wander around, and you can take pictures with him, and it'll cosmetically change drastically to create the San Francisco theme. But otherwise, they may change what some of the food offerings are to fit in better with this new theme. But it will ultimately still be a food court with a meet and greet instead of honestly, if you took all that out to put in a ride, like you're chopping off a bunch of the food options in the park, and you can't do that either. So I would love for them to find a way to put in like a Baymax, family friendly, simple ride. Since they took Bugs Land out, California Adventure is lacking a lot of those sorts of rides. And as somebody who has young kids, I would like there to be more of those kind of rides in that park. So I would love to see that. And and maybe there's a possibility for that down the road, as you say. At least initially, they're just going to change the cosmetics, and then it'll ultimately be the same place it is. But
Well,
maybe they can find a way to throw a small ride in there, and that would be cool. I mean, if they can, that'd be great.
there's that big soundstage. I know it's on the other side of the park, but there's that big soundstage that is now the Marvel merchandise warehouse. That if you accidentally stumble back there, everything your heart's desire about Marvel Cinematic Universe toys and T-shirts is there. But that's never. I mean, you probably know better than me. I was trying to explain to my son last weekend what was in that thing originally, because that wasn't Hollywood Limo. That was or Superstar Limo. That was Monsters Inc. to the rescue. Was
Yeah,
it
I know.
just?
I don't even know what. I mean, it's been a number of different things. The one thing I remember them doing with it a number of years ago, they put a frozen area back there,
Yes.
and you could they covered it. They filled it full of fake snow, and you could do a little toboggan thing
I
down
went to that. Yeah.
down a tiny hill, which is the only significant thing I remember them doing with that until the pandemic, when they turned it into a large merch space, because when the parks were still closed, but they could open retail, and so they did that. They turned that into a retail space.
I'm sorry.
Uh,
Wait a minute. You got to back that up. Were people actually going just to? You couldn't ride anything, but you could.
yeah, well, so there was, if you remember, there was a brief period, and because let's see, they opened Downtown Disney, or at least partially, before they
Yes.
could open the
Okay.
parks. So Downtown Disney was there, and I might have my timeline a little skewed. Um, they may have opened that area before they opened any of the parks, but there was also that brief period where they opened up part of the parks as just dining and retail.
That's right. Okay, I'd
Um,
forgotten about that because I didn't go down there for it.
yeah,
So
I never actually saw it, but they did do that, and I know that area was open at least at that point. It might have been open earlier. I don't recall exactly. But yeah, because they did that when they were just trying to figure out what they could do, because they were
yeah,
desperate to open it however they could. Although to be fair, I was a little surprised because they could have done that a lot earlier than they did, and I was always shocked that they didn't.
they were dealing with the government, and I don't want to get political because who knows. It'll be decades before we can really say were people acting right, were people over cautious. Who knows? I'm on the we were doing the right thing, but I also understand everybody had a business to run.
Yeah.
You also, before I let you go, you tweeted out today, and we had a little bit of an exchange over the excitement that in October it seems that Disney Plus has remembered that they have decades of prior programming
Yeah.
to put back out, and that we're getting Zorro, the original Zorro, which of course they're also developing a remake with Wilmer Valderrama, but that we're getting seasons 1 and 2. I don't even know how many seasons there were
I think there's
originally of
just the two.
I don't know. I only have two packages,
Yeah.
two DVD sets. So yeah, we're getting the seasons of Zorro. There was a couple of other, perhaps to us forgettable TV movies from Wonderful World of Disney. But yeah, what has been the deal with that? Like, why have they not remembered they have a vault?
I have never understood, and I actually went back and verified this. There was when Disney released their schedule for what they were releasing, because I get those press releases every month from Disney Plus. I want to say it was March of last year. Zorro was on that schedule, that list
I thought
back
so.
then, but then it didn't come out, which was not uncommon in that early period for Disney Plus. They would occasionally say, here's what's coming next month, and then some of the stuff wouldn't come out, and then it would come out the month after or the month after that. But Zorro just disappeared, and I even asked
Into the night.
I even asked the PR guy just to verify when I got that list, like, is this the original Zorro from? And they ignored me and never responded, so I couldn't even confirm that. So I don't know, it's weird. It's like, especially like, because like you say, you have the DVDs, So Zorro, like the digital transfer has been done. Like that's, and if any part of this takes time, I can totally understand if there are lots of old Disney things that never got released on DVD, so they only exist on actual film in an actual vault somewhere. And I can understand that maybe that kind of stuff is going to take time to get transferred to a state that you can release it on Disney Plus, and that's fine. But you should have started doing that back when you started Disney Plus, and it's been years now. So we should have more of that. And especially like this year, I feel like Disney Plus, as far as the quantity of the content they've released on the service, it's been shrinking. They've been relying so heavily on their original series, their Marvel or their Star Wars, whatever they're doing, that's almost the only thing that's coming out every week.
Well, and they're pumping in some ESPN and National Geographic stuff in, but let's be honest, there are very few people going to Disney Plus because of ESPN and National Geographic.
Right. Well, and and I don't know how many people are honestly going to care about 2 seasons of Zorro coming out, but
okay, so the 2 people who do are in this conversation right now,
and that's fair. But at the same time, I feel like if you just released that stuff, if you released more than just, I think the first week of the original Mickey Mouse Club is available on Disney Plus, like 5 episodes, and that's it. If you release that stuff, even the people who aren't necessarily watching it, like, I think they would appreciate that it is there now. Just if Disney was just churning this content onto the service, if people who own the service and who are about to get a significant price increase would look at it and go, well, at least there's a lot of stuff here, and maybe I'm not going to watch all of it, but the fact that they keep adding lots of stuff every month is very cool and makes the service worth it to me. I feel like people would appreciate it, even if they're not necessarily going to binge watch 2 seasons of Zorro like I plan to do on October 5th.
There's also the factor of, if you know it's there, you'll get around to it eventually,
right,
whether you do or not, but you know it's there.
Right.
And it's interesting when you say Mickey Mouse Club, because that one is weird to me that there's only a week's worth, because I saw a family, and I'm talking kids, cosplaying as the original Mouseketeers. And, and Annette, I sort of get, because it's like a joke. It's all over the pop culture still. Like, I asked my son, do you know any of the Mouseketeers? And he knew Annette. But there was a Darlene, there was a Cubby, there was a Tommy, and, Dad was Roy. And, so it's like, I guess what little there is, more than the more modern Mickey Mouse clubs, still resonates somehow. Or grandparents are going, we watch this, you're going to like it. I don't know. But that's the Zorro thing, too. You have the old, and you'll hopefully have the new one. So, well, I know you got to go. So thank you for jumping on, for having this little conversation, because I've been dying to talk with somebody about D23 that experienced a piece of it, and we both have similar viewpoints. Absolutely. We met as Disney fans at BayCon, and so it's been great to see what you've been doing over at Cinema Blend. So follow Dirk Libbey on Twitter as well, and cinemablend.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good to talk to you.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any Fanboy Planet video content. And visit fanboyplanet.com for other features, reviews, interviews, previews, and of course, listening to the Fanboy Planet podcast. And remember, use your powers for good.